The revolution has come. Time to pick up the gun. The Black Panthers' call to arms, 1966. Chanted in Oakland, California, it echoed across the nation.
I wanted to be a part of what that Black Panther Party was about because it gave some purpose to my life.
Pigs are gonna catch hell. Off the pig. No more brothers in jail. Off the pig. The pigs are gonna catch hell.
I spotted them, I think, almost immediately as quasi-gangsters, as terrorists. And we weren't going to tolerate it, and didn't, and put it down.
Off the pig. No more pigs in our community. Off the pig. No more pigs in our community. Off the pig.
Violence was wrong. Violence against blacks was what we wanted to stop. But the best way to stop violence was not to run out there and let your head be beat or let somebody step on you. The best way to stop violence was to defend yourself and say, you want to take my life, risk yours.
It's time to pick up
Black power means dignity.
has come. Off the pig.
The 1960s shook America. As U.S. involvement in Vietnam escalated, protesters took to the streets in an anti-war movement that would split the country. The civil rights movement faced its own crisis. Activists were being attacked, beaten, even murdered. The movement looked to its leaders.
I'm still convinced that nonviolence is the most potent weapon available to oppress people in their struggle for freedom and justice. I feel that violence will only create more social problems than they will solve.
No man can speak for Negroes who tells Negroes love their enemy. No man can speak for Negroes who tells Negroes turn the other cheek. No man can speak for Negroes who tells Negroes to suffer peacefully. There is no Negro in his right mind today who is going to turn the other cheek.
There was a great debate going on in this community around this issue that was being asserted by Martin Luther King of nonviolence, and the issue that was being pushed primarily by Malcolm X, that, look, you don't have to surrender any of your rights to gain your rights as American citizens, and that one of the things that you have is the right to defend yourself.
The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, broke with its multiracial past. Its leader, Stokely Carmichael, took the movement in a new direction: Black Power.
In this country, you were to think that white people were God, that they had the right to give us our freedom. And so what we had to do was to beg them or to act the way they want us to act before they gave us our freedom. We must stop seeking to imitate white society. We must create for ourselves to save our very humanity. Because the fight for black power in this country is indeed a fight to civilize a barbaric country, the United States.
Just so happened the same week that I became a SNCC worker was the week that Stokely Carmichael announced in this March Against Fear in Mississippi that what we wanted was black power, and SNCC became a black power organization, and the civil rights movement was transformed, or was in the process of being transformed, from a movement, you might say, to get into the society, a movement to let blacks have things they were denied, into a movement that was redefining what blacks were all about.
We felt ourselves to be the heirs of Malcolm, and I could remember, Malcolm saying that, we demand our rights to be, treated like a man, a human being in this society right now, and we are going to have that right by any means necessary. And it still makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck to hear that, or to say it, because I still believe that.
In February 1965, Malcolm X was assassinated. That summer, police shot a young man in Watts, the black ghetto in Los Angeles. The neighborhood exploded. The story would repeat itself in Newark and Detroit. Thousands of National Guard troops occupied the inner city
A
ghettos.
besieged city of guerrilla warfare. Sniper groups use day and night hit-and-run tactics before tanks move in to curb their window and rooftop barrage. Wreckage is everywhere.
In cities across the country, black Americans began looking for ways to make black power a reality. Oakland, California, one of the nation's most integrated cities. Southern blacks came here during World War II to work in the shipyards. They settled in West Oakland, the heart of the black community. Among them was the Newton family of Louisiana.
Huey was one of my first friends that I met when I came to California. Huey was known as a very extreme, formidable opponent. And all of the guys on the street who had confrontations with Huey coming up knew that. And that was one of the reasons why they respected him, because he was not one who lost a fight. I mean, you know, Huey's theory or philosophy was when you get them down, then you do something to make sure that they don't get up and come back at you.
In the early 60s, Oakland was dominated by a conservative political leadership and a police force that was feared by the black community.
People don't know how much we rely unconsciously on the police and the judicial mechanism to protect us from harm. I mean, we walk around feeling safe and secure because in general, if we have a confrontation with a law violator, we really think that the judicial system will ferret that out and that we'll be protected. Well, most black people in the United States, everywhere, just did not share that view, and they didn't feel safe.
You know, we could get arrested for suspicion of something that happened generally in the area. I mean, it was like, since all black folks looked alike, if some black person had done something 6 blocks away, you could be arrested and charged with it because you happen to be in that area. Or if you're walking home from school, something happened, even if guys got into a fight, I got my books, right? I'm college prep, I got my books, I'm walking home, here come the police, why should I run? Shit, if you didn't run, they'd arrest you and charge you with whatever had happened.
Huey Newton decided not to run from the police. He and his friends Bobby Seale and Richard Aoki took a stand.
So one night we were just sitting around talking and thought that it might be a good idea to organize or create an organization similar to that of another organization located in Los Angeles. This group was called the Community Action Patrol, I believe, CAP. And CAP was very, very concerned about police brutality, and they were going around following the police and photographing and tape recording police activities in their community. We felt that that was a very good idea, because if the police knew they were being observed and their activities were being recorded, their predilection towards violence would diminish.
In 1966, Newton and Seale formed an organization to monitor the Oakland police. Borrowing the symbol of a Southern voting rights organization, they called themselves the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense.
Police are there not to, in our community, not to promote our welfare or for our security and our safety, but they're there to contain us, to brutalize us and murder us because they have their orders to do so. And just as the soldiers in Vietnam have their orders to destroy the Vietnamese people, the police in our community couldn't possibly be there to protect our property because we own no property.
The Panther flair for the dramatic attracted the party's first members, a mix of college students, military veterans, and streetwise kids from West Oakland.
At the time the Panthers were organized in early '66, there was no legal prohibition against carrying open weapons. The laws in California prohibited the carrying of concealed weapons. But as long as you carried a weapon openly without any live ammunition in the chamber, it wasn't against the law. The Panthers used this as a two-pronged means of both demonstrating to people that they could arm themselves and also trying to show the black community that they did not have to be terrified of the police.
And so they went into the ghetto, Bobby Seale and Huey Newton, with guns. And they would stand within 10 feet of a place where the police officers would stop some member of the ghetto. And they would stand about 10 feet away and they would say to the brother or to the sister, give you your name and address, and say, am I under arrest? Don't resist. If you're under arrest, we will follow you and bail you out. Submit peacefully. This scared the hell out of the Oakland police.
This was a new experience, to be making a car stop and then have someone roll in behind you, and pretty soon the hunter is now the hunted, so to speak. I know of one guy personally that quit, went to the FBI. I would, myself personally, in that end of town, I was uncomfortable. But I developed a posture of taking on, I was aggressive. As soon as they rolled up, they became the focus of the stop rather than the person that I originally stopped. And eventually they left me alone.
The police actually got out and injected rounds into their shotguns, and we're standing there point blank, and at any point a shootout could happen. At that point, I very quickly realized how important Huey was not only to our organization, but to my very life, and that I had to trust and depend on him, as we used to do when we were in the gang fights. All of a sudden, I knew right then and there that Huey was in control of the situation. Huey immediately jacked around in the shotgun, stood the police off, laid down what the laws were about the guns, talked about it from our constitutional framework. The police backed up.
It worked so well that the Oakland police could not restrain themselves from running to get their congressman, their state representative, to pass a law in California to ban the carrying of weapons openly.
The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense calls upon the American people in general, and the black people in particular, to take careful note of the racist California legislature, which is now considering legislation aimed at keeping the black people disarmed and powerless. At the very same time, racist police agencies throughout the country are intensifying the terror, brutality, murder, and repression of black people.
I have these Black Panthers up here with guns on the second floor.
They're heavily armed. Whether their weapons are loaded or not, nobody seems to know.
May 3rd, 1967. As the California state legislature prepared to pass a gun control bill aimed specifically at disarming Panther patrols, the Panthers burst into the assembly chamber.
Wait a minute, now wait a minute. Right in the office. Wait a minute. Oh, he was under arrest. Am I under arrest? Am I under arrest? You place him under arrest. Go ahead, brother. Am I under arrest? Am I? Take your hands off me if I'm not under arrest.
Am I under arrest?
I'm telling you to take your hands off me.
Is this the way the racist government works? Don't let a man exercise his constitutional rights?
We did not go in there with the purpose of disrupting the assembly. We came there as citizens to observe these laws being passed, to see what was going on. And so therefore, when we were told to get out, we left, came back out on the Capitol grounds. We sit down, had our guns, still had our guns there on the Capitol grounds, those who were carrying guns. And ate chicken, had lunch. We weren't even, there was no police, no surveillance, no anything there at that particular time. So when we left, and we went about a mile away or so, and we stopped at the filling station to get gas. When we stopped at the filling station to get gas, then that's where, out of nowhere, you had all these plainclothes and uniformed police come down and swoop down on us.
You don't know the Constitution, right?
Not like this. Sure we do. We're well aware of the Constitution.
You have no right to take my gun away from me. You break the Constitution like right.
They put trumped up charges of conspiracy and felonies on everyone who went in to exercise a constitutional right and said they had no right to bear arms in a public place. The California Penal Code section 12020 through 12027 and also the Second Amendment of the Constitution guarantees the citizen a right to bear arms on public property.
The Panthers had fewer than 30 members when they went to Sacramento. This dramatic display attracted many more.
We always said, we're not afraid to say it, that these racist Gestapo pigs have to stop brutalizing our community or we're going to take up guns, we're going to drive them out. And we feel we'd be
The Panthers' boldness made for more confrontations.
There was a fanatical strain in the Panthers that made them a dangerous organization, but they tended to keep it on the defensive rather than the offensive. I mean, they didn't have targets to go out and shoot. They weren't like the Order or some of the white supremacist fanatical groups of today who have been tried and convicted of assassinating people. Panthers weren't that kind of a group, but they did shoot back.
They were continually hostile and charging the police with harassment, and I always felt that they brought it on themselves. If they'd gone and walked off and been quiet, I don't think there would have been so much police hostility as there was. But it was a two-way street. After a while, they became almost open game for the police.
On the night of October 27th, 1967, Oakland patrolman John Fry radioed headquarters that he was stopping a Panther car. Exactly what happened in the next few minutes remains unclear. 12 shots were fired, killing Officer Fry and wounding a second officer. Huey Newton, also wounded, was arrested and charged with first-degree murder.
The Huey Newton case had everything in it from a lawyer's dream. It had racism, jury selection problem. It had a whodunit problem. Huey Newton never had a gun. He had a book by Judge Fricky, law book in his hand when he got out of the car and went out towards the police officers. He didn't have a gun.
The prosecution claimed Newton did have a gun, but it jammed. They alleged that Newton then disarmed Fry and shot the officer with his own weapon. No gun was ever found.
When Huey Newton was shot in October of 1967 and his case was going to trial, we took his trial as a vehicle to continue and expand and promote the ideas of self-defense.
No more brothers in jail. Off the pig. The pigs are gonna catch hell. Off the pig. No more brothers in jail. Off the pig.
And we wanted to get people to come out and support him at his trial. We got a flatbed truck and we drive around the neighborhoods and say, come see about Huey. Some people would call out, he's going to the gas chamber. Or they could not conceive that any black man could go to trial in a white court for killing a white policeman and come out alive. By the time the case actually went to trial in June of 1968, there was about 5,000 people outside the courthouse demanding free Huey.
Newton didn't go to the gas chamber, but he was convicted of manslaughter. Outside the courthouse, the Panthers played to their newest ally, the television cameras.
They liked the black leather jacket, the black beret. They liked the posters. They liked the drama. There was something about the Panthers that was exciting, that was different, and that looked great on the evening news.
If the media hadn't given these bums so much attention, they wouldn't be where they are today. We stumble all over ourselves to get the latest word on what they were doing and where they did it and how they did it. And it is quite possible that if we had ignored them completely, they would never have gotten where they did.
I mean, they knew that one of the ways that they could get on the 6 o'clock news was by making, some would say outrageous and others would say very dramatic statements, and so they made them.
Execute black people for defending black people, then we say, bring it on. If you want war, let there be war. This is what we're saying. Is that clear?
In other words, if he is convicted and sentenced to death, Oakland will erupt.
This whole country is going to erupt, is what we're telling you. We're going to do everything that we can to see to it that the whole world erupts. Isn't that clear? We're not kidding about this. We mean this.
The government, the police, and large numbers of white people who'd never seen a Black Panther in person, they'd only seen them on television, were convinced that this was the most frightening thing they ever heard of in life and they should all be abolished.